Well, CES obviously is sort of the hub of all things innovation. It's a really good kickoff for the beginning of the year. And if we're thinking about all the technology, all of the data, and all the innovation, we want to be at the forefront of that. So there's no better place to be than CES. All of our clients are here. Representatives from the holding companies are here. So it's a great place to kind of kick off all the conversations that ultimately will lead into upfront season later this year. But to have those kinds of conversations about what we're doing in technology and innovation and what they expect of us in technology and innovation.
So you had a pretty amazing year last year on the measurement data technology front. What were the big achievements from your point of view? What are you most proud of?
So obviously I continue to be super proud of our audience graph and sort of what we've built and how we're thinking about and understanding audiences that will always, even as we expand and grow, extending that with Disney Plus and, the launch of Disney Plus and thinking about that data and how we're considered of that data and how it impacts our audience graph. And then obviously we talk about it a lot, but moving into clean rooms. And so how we've expanded our clean room from 22 to 23, we saw 570% growth in brands actively engaging in our clean room. So for us, continuing to expand and grow that at wide scale and making it an offering that we can really give to clients of all shapes and sizes so that, regardless of the size of the brand or how much data that they bring to the table themselves, we're able to offer them the same kind of capabilities.
So the dial-up of clean rooms has been one of the most interesting things of the last few years. They're playing an increasingly central role in measurement, transactions, targeting, a whole set of issues. Do you expect that to continue?
I do, and especially, if you think about, we've been at it for a while, right? So if you think from 2022 to 2023, 570% growth, 2,000 reports have been run out of the clean room. So I just think as the education has happened and as we've sort of grown in that regard, it's going to continue to grow. And again, to scale to a longer tail of advertisers who maybe don't have what they think needs to be an army of engineers to be in the clean room. But I think everyone is thinking about consumer privacy and respecting consumers and doing data the right way. And so the more people understand how to go about it, I think the more it's just going to expand.
So I think the industry had a big year last year from a privacy point of view. We're really coming to terms with the fact that we can't keep doing business in the same way. Privacy laws and regulations will require change.
Yeah.
What's your take on the kinds of changes that we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think the clean room's a great example, right? I think we're thinking a lot more about, and we have been for a long time, but I think people are coming around to the idea that modeled segments, for instance, can perform as well and in some cases better than sort of one-to-one. And so how we think about those things, how we think about aggregation of data and how we group things together at maybe higher levels of aggregation as we're thinking about privacy. But again, how we collaborate in a way where data is not exchanging hands, but we're still able to be super accurate and efficient in what we're doing.
So one issue we've spoken about in the past, which I know you feel very strongly about, is how we accurately measure diverse audiences.
Yeah.
There's change in that area coming, I think.
Yeah, there is. We think a lot about prioritize accuracy. Those are kind of two words we talk about all the time because measurement for the sake of measurement is not particularly useful, right? And so you want your measurement not only to be accurate for the sake of accuracy, which is important, but also because in theory there's a loop where you're taking those results and then you're targeting again and you're thinking about how your next campaign operates based on that. So the accuracy is so key. I think, there's been a lot of work that had to get done to even measure, right? And so now this is kind of the next step of, all right, but we need it to be accurate. We need it to be reflective of consumption on CTV or traditional digital and even for linear as well. And what does that look like? How do you determine incrementality across all of those things? For us, I think our real push has been into interoperability, unfortunately to use a buzzword, but how do we take our audience graph and sort of what we know and create some sense of interoperability with various, third-party measurement providers or even a brand who's doing measurement on their own to increase that level of accuracy because the match rate is so much higher. So when you're starting with a higher base, how do we continue to increase accuracy that way?
So taking us back, though, to the diversity question, obviously with every great revolution, there are challenges, and I think everyone can be incredibly positive about the rate of progress and the huge improvements we've seen, which you've been speaking about. that there are some things as an industry we need to start thinking carefully about and get right this year. And I think you think that diversity and multicultural audiences is one of them.
I do, and I think it's something that, I mean, I want to believe we all have a heart to get right?
Yes.
And to do the right way. I think there's definitely been some kind of regulatory changes, some legal changes, where certain things that one might deem as an indicator of diversity are personal information. And so we have to think very differently about that. I think in our approach, one, we think about content, and we think about indexing across content and content types and content consumption, but for things that are more nuanced. I think if you think about diversity as a monolith, we've already done it wrong, right? And so how do we think about the nuances there at a broader scale? How do we take, knowing some of the limitations, how do we take primary research and marry that to data and things that we understand on a consumption level, and then start to think about it in a much more nuanced way?
So can you give us a flavour of what lies in store for the rest of this year? Are there big things you're looking forward to, things you're working on, which you think will be super important in the year ahead?
This week at our Tech and Data Showcase, we announced that we're launching a Disney portal with Habu, which is our first foray into kind of a self-service clean room, if you will. So again, that long tail of advertisers who have every right to measure accurately, to target accurately, without maybe so much data to bring to the table, giving them the opportunity in a much more simplified way to engage with us. That's one. We're expanding our clean rooms to both Google and Amazon, and so we'll be available there as well. So continuing that expansion, and then continuing the places in which we are interoperable. Again, to allow for increased scale because of increased match for targeting, but also prioritizing accuracy of measurement and leveraging interoperability to do that. That's sort of our foray into the next year. And then obviously the global expansion of Disney Plus, our intention is to be comparable in terms of capabilities across the world. And so, that's no small feat if we can accomplish it, but that's really what we're looking forward to in the next year.